thank you so much for joining us for the 7th day of Remembrance. And to the family and family friends who have joined with us, we want to say thank you for that as well. Today, as we take time to pause and remember 134 loved ones, much more than names on a monument or names in your program. They're brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters. They're oh so much more than just a name on our monument. So it's appropriate that we take a little time today to honor their memory and to also make sure that we never have to add another name to this monument as well. So to start us off today, we're honored to have the Missouri State Highway Patrol Troop F Honor Guard with us today. I'd like to ask the Color Guard to please post the colors.
Please join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to thank Troop F for being with us today. We appreciate you being here, and you are a great friend and partner. Again, I would echo what Eric suggested. Please move as close to the edge of the shaded area as you possibly can. We want to make sure everyone hears our speakers today. Thank you. I now have the pleasure of introducing Director Patrick McKenna.
Am I shorter than Brenda? Okay. Thank you, Brenda, and thank you all for being here, and thank you to Troop F. You know, it's amazing, but just around the corner, and I'd welcome you all to do this, but just around the bend in the Capitol, there's another memorial here that is a remembrance for fallen safety workers as well, and please keep that in mind. You know, the partnership we have with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. We share a partnership that includes dangerous conditions, dangerous work conditions that we all share when we're trying to serve the public, and too many, both of the Highway Patrol as well as MoDOT workers have paid the ultimate price and ultimate sacrifice. So I really do want to deeply thank the Highway Patrol for being here. And as Eric mentioned, this is our 7th annual Day of Remembrance ceremony. Each year we honor our fallen. We take a moment to thank those employees who worked so hard to make this memorial a reality. It was a dedication of those employees who made sure that not only would this memorial be built, but also we'd gather together each year to remember those who are no longer with us. This memorial is more than just the names of those we've lost. It represents mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandparents, friends, and co-workers. They were public servants to the citizens of Missouri, and today we honor their memory. We will not forget their sacrifice and the sacrifice of their families. Their spirit lives on. I want to say how proud I am of our employees. I know you're committed to the safety of yourselves, your co-workers, and the traveling public. You understand the dangers that you may face in your line of work, and you watch out for one another on the job. I appreciate the commitment you have to each other, and I thank you all for the work you do every day. Today, I'm happy to report that we've not added a name to this memorial since 2017. Thank you for that. I'm also very happy to announce some good news we received earlier this year. Governor Parsons signed into law House Bill 499, which authorizes the Missouri Department of Revenue to revoke a driver's license of anyone who hits a highway or utility worker in a work zone or an emergency responder in an emergency zone. This bill is known as Lyndon's Law, whose family is here with us today, and it's dedicated to our fallen worker, Lyndon Ebker. And they'll say a few words about the impacts of this bill later in the program. But that's a huge win in public policy. It's a hard-fought victory, and it's vitally important to our team. You know, I also want to mention that we've had several accomplishments at MoDOT further promoting safety of our employees, both in our organizational structure as well as in the tools we use to complete our mission. Within the past year, we've appointed a Chief Safety and Operations Officer, Becky Almaroth, who's with us today, as well as a Chief Administrative Officer. Lester Woods is with us as well. These two additional executive leadership positions ensure our focus and management structure more adequately reflect our core values of safety, service, and stability. Additionally, we've made advances in our equipment and technology over the years and have safety procedures that we practice every day. Thanks to MoDOT's Innovations Challenge, much of the work we do has become safer. Take, for example, Julie's Automated Waste Removal System, or JAWS, which was named for a Kansas City employee, Julie Love, whose name is unfortunately on the wall behind me. Julie was killed in 2004 while attempting to remove debris from a local highway. The purpose of JAWS is to move debris from the roadway onto the shoulder where it no longer impedes traffic and can be picked up with minimal danger. I'm particularly proud of the MoDOT employees who created Julie's Automated Waste Removal System. I have to commend those employees who worked together to develop an automated flagging device that completely removes MoDOT employee flaggers from the roadway. This TMA flagger project has been in the works since December of 2015, and after successful testing, MoDOT has issued a request for proposal for the purchase of 44 TMA flaggers that will be deployed across the state. Thank you to all of our employees who continually challenge themselves and each other to find their ways to do their jobs safer. It's a commitment of the Commission, and it's a commitment of the executive leadership and our entire team to provide those tools and to make that investment to make your job safer every day. Thank you for being here today, for everyone, and for letting me be part of this tribute to our fallen highway heroes. And now I'd like to turn it over to our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer, Ed Hassinger.
Thanks, Patrick. I want to take a few minutes to recognize the families of the fallen workers that are here with us today. From the family of Lyndon Ebker, who was lost in 2016, we have his wife, Beth, and his daughter, Nicole. And you're going to hear from them in a little while. And from the family of Gerald Lazat, we have quite a crew. Gerald was lost in 2001. His wife, Joyce, is here. His mother, Patricia. His daughters, Bree and Nicole. And his son, Nick Thomas, and granddaughter, Carly. And they're all standing right over here, and you're going to hear from Bree later, too. A special thank you goes out to you all for being here. I know there's nothing that can replace the loss of a loved one, but we certainly consider everybody to be part of the MoDOT family, and you certainly will always be in our thoughts and be a part of that family as we go forward. So, also, I want to recognize a group of folks that rode in from St. Louis. The Ride for Remembrance, the ceremony was held, this similar ceremony was held this morning in St. Louis, and kind of a tradition has been they've made the ride from St. Louis to this ceremony. And really it started as a fundraising effort to raise the money through our employees to build this memorial. So thank you to the St. Louis crew that rode in today to remember our fallen workers. So Patrick mentioned Lyndon's Law, and that's really an important thing that does a lot of good things, but also I think is very symbolic. For our folks that go out there, the 3,500 strong every day on the road, it's symbolic that people care about them. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Beth and Nicole to come up and say a few words about Lyndon's Law.
Today has a unique and special meaning for each one of us present, and I feel privileged to share this day of remembrance with you. I'm so grateful that I've come to know so many as family, and for the honor of sharing and speaking with you today. 2 years ago, many of us shared a beautiful ceremony together, dedicating the Lyndon Ebker Memorial Bridge to my late husband's life and service. But more importantly, we dedicated that bridge to the men and women who today design, build, and maintain our Missouri roadways and bridges. Lyndon's daughter, Nicole, is here with me today and was very instrumental, along with the Missouri General Assembly, in initiating the bill and passing Lyndon's Law this past July. The law's purpose stands to protect the valued and irreplaceable lives of our highway utility workers and first responders. One deeply rooted value that Lyndon taught me was to never take a day for granted. Always work hard and take pride in serving others. I was reminded this past week, as our nation remembered the tragedy of September 11th, that many too soon and too often forget. They go on with the busyness and the schedules and the routines of daily life. Many of you know that I have the privilege of teaching third grade, and each day I have the opportunity to teach citizenship, leadership, and the importance of service to others. I don't consider this a job. I consider this an opportunity to change lives. I would like to leave you today with a portion of a book that I shared with my students called September 12th. I thought fitting for today as we show the appreciation and the gratitude that is due our highway workers and our first responders through Lyndon's Law. This book was written and illustrated by first grade students of H. Byron Masterson Elementary in Kennett, Missouri. We knew everything would be all right because the sun came up and the birds started to sing again. We knew everything would be all right when we saw our teacher smiling at the door. We said the Pledge of Allegiance and sang the national anthem. We knew everything would be all right because we had homework, and 2 + 2 still added up to 4. We knew everything would be all right because the stars and moon came out, and our parents said they loved us as America went to sleep. And the next morning, the sun came up again. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for having us up here and for remembering Dad, especially this year. It's hard to fathom this is the 4th Memorial Day I have attended, and the memory of my dad is as strong as it was as the day he was taken. There's not a day that goes by that I don't miss him and replay several conversations and wish so bad for one more. Soon after his death, someone told me, wouldn't it be nice if we were given the opportunity to choose the life we live? If before we came to Earth, several scenarios were laid out in front of us, and we got to pick the one we found most satisfying or seen the most joy, or maybe the one that made the biggest difference. At the time, I couldn't respond because I thought, I don't know what your point is. I was too buried in the pain and too wrapped up in the thought that the gentleman who took my dad's life was still driving on the road, putting so many others at risk. And that's when I knew, what would Dad do? He would change it. He would do something about it. On July 9th, Governor Parsons signed House Bill 499, Lyndon's Law. This changed the previous legislation, making license suspension automatic should the reporting officer find the driver negligent and responsible for hitting a highway worker, utility worker, or emergency responder in an appropriately marked zone on the highway. I am told Lyndon's Law is going to save many lives, which is beyond fantastic, as this was the whole point from the beginning. So going back to that conversation with that person, would my dad have chose this? Would he have chosen to save many lives? Absolutely. If he had known the morning of April 7, 2016 was going to be his last, he still would have climbed out of the MoDOT truck and taken his place as the flagman for the work zone on Highway 100 on the Beff Creek Bridge. no one would have been able to switch places with him. He would have chosen to be remembered as the flagman whose tragic death stimulated his family to make a difference by changing the law to protect thousands who work on the roadways of Missouri. To get Lyndon's law passed, it took a lot of work by several different people. I could never list each person. So I want to say thank you to all of you. You are forever going to hold a special place in my heart. The one person I will thank is my dad. He was the strongest point through this all. It was his sacrifice that showed us the law in place was not appropriate. It was his unconditional love, his determination for safety, his honest life, and his tragic death that pushed us forward. In the end, he gave all that day. None of our pain will ever come close to his. It was always about him, and being about him, it became for others. That day when he stepped between the lines of the highway, he had no idea his life would end between the lines. As we move forward, remember those we have lost, and keep in mind the ones we have to save. As my dad always said, I do what needs done. Now it's our turn. Thank you so much.
Beth and Nicole, thank you for those heartfelt remarks. I also want to recognize somebody else in the crowd that is here. Mark Friesen was one of our employees that was hit in a work zone, and Mark continues, even after all these years, to advocate for safety of employees on the highway. So Mark, thank you for that. Now I'm pleased to introduce Gerald Lazat's daughter, Bree Lazat, to come up and say a few words.
Hello. My name is Bree Lazat, and I've been asked to speak to you today about the Roadway Memorial Scholarship and how it's impacted my life. First, I should probably tell you a little about my dad, though. Gerald Thomas Lazat Jr. was born September 18th, 1958, to Patricia, who's here today, and Gerald Lazat. He grew up in St. James, Missouri, where he fostered a love for equestrianism. At the age of 17, he enlisted in the Marines, where he eventually completed his high school diploma. After transferring to the Army and eventually being discharged, he took a job as a police officer in a small town in Oklahoma. He knew his dream career was out there, it just kind of took him a long time to find it. Finally, he found his home here at MoDOT and found a job that he loved. In 1993, Gerald Lazat married my mom, Joyce. The next part of his story is my favorite part, because that's where I come in. In 1998, my mom and my dad welcomed me. His whole life was finally coming together, but unfortunately the bliss of a new baby and a new marriage wasn't able to last long. On August 31st, 2001, my father was transporting materials for testing from a job site he was overseeing. Not far from his departure location, a car crossed the center line, traveling in his opposite direction, and hit his vehicle head-on. He passed en route to the hospital. It left a life he had finally come to love shattered. In a single instant, his wife became a single mother to his stepson and his new baby daughter. With a piece of the life all three had known, missing, each learned in their own unique way to move on and to live their lives. Finally, 15 years after his death, it became time for me to decide what I was going to do with my life. So I decided that I was going to go to college. My mom and I first became aware of college financial aid dedicated to families of fallen workers when she reached out to MoDOT, where she corresponded with a very kind, compassionate woman by the name of Vicki McElwain. Vicki was so kind to my mother and made her feel like she wasn't alone in being a widow of a fallen worker seeking aid for their child. It was with her help that my mom and I were able to find the American Traffic Safety Services Association, or in short, ATSA. This organization has shown me also nothing but kindness. The first year I received scholarship from ATSA, they flew me out to their yearly convention and asked that I give a speech about what their scholarship meant to me. I took this opportunity to tell my story in its entirety for the first time, 16 years after the accident. I stood on that stage, tears in my eyes, and occasionally streaming down my cheeks, and told the room about 1,000 people what ATSA's help meant to me. I explained how as a 3-year-old, looking down at a casket with a man who I knew was my father in it, but looked a little different than I had remembered, and how I insisted to be shown that he'd be wearing shoes, because I thought that he had to have them. I also remember asking for a tissue, because even though I was too young to understand the complexity of the emotions people were feeling around me, I felt like I had to at least convey them. After I finished my speech, I wiped my tears, and I calmly walked off that stage. For the first time, I felt weightless. I no longer felt different for experiencing the trauma of losing a parent and growing up with a single mother as a result of my father's death. If I had not been given a platform to tell my story, I do not think I'd be in a place in my life that I am today. ATSA forever changed my perspective of my story and allowed me to feel like I was no longer alone. Coupled with the Roadway Memorial Scholarship I received from ATSA, I also received the Missouri Department of Higher Education's Public Survivors Grant. My mom and I were also made aware of this through Vicky's help. It was because of Vicky's help and kindness and every MoDOT employee that we've ever come in contact with that I'm now a senior in my undergrad studying psychology and justice systems at Truman State University. Attending Truman, I have realized my dream of helping those who have experienced trauma similar to mine, which is why, after I graduate, my plan is to work as a child advocate in order to help lower the number of children who have to experience a trauma alone. Knowing what I know and knowing how I felt, I can't consciously live my life without attempting to help children who experience trauma. If I could go back in time, I would want an advocate there for me, and my hope is that every child I work with in the future will never have to hope the same. That they'll never have to wonder why there isn't someone protecting them from legal proceedings or helping them through the grieving process. I owe a lot to Vicki and the entire MoDOT staff for always supporting the families of fallen workers. It's the smallest things that you guys do that make the biggest impacts on our lives. Thank you.
Bree, thank you so much for those comments. Now I want to turn it over to our Chief Administrative Officer, Lester Woods.
Thank you, Ed. Good afternoon. As we prepare to honor the memory of our fallen workers by reading their names, I want to say how humbling it is for me to stand here before you today and honor the names and the person of these individuals who have fallen. These 134 individuals, they were loyal, talented, hardworking employees who were taken from their families and from the MoDOT family way too soon. They will forever be missed, and no words can express our sympathy to the families of all of these individuals, and we are happy to support you in any way that we can. May we never add another name to this memorial. Can I say that again? May we never add another name to this memorial. Now, to honor and pay tribute to those 134 individuals, we will read the names of those whom we have lost.
From the Northwest District, Claude Atkinson, Eliad Doyle, Larry Graves, Kenneth Hasbrook, Joe Houston, Joseph Hughes, Clarence Ingalls, Lloyd Land, Randy Musterman, Royd Murphy, Wendell O'Neill, Ivan Ramsey, Cleo Rode, Lawton Robert, Thomas Snuffer, Otis Stretch, William Walker, and Donald Wyatt. From the Northeast District, E. Baker, Henry Beckman, James Carmichael, William Epperson, Harold Hess, Danny Leake, Elmer Lean, Donna Lindsay, Robert Mayer, Sidney Mitchell, George Pfeiffer, and Lowell Tallman.
In the Kansas City District, Howard Anderson, Floyd Ash, William Caldwell, Garth Camden, Burley Chambers, Clarence Foster, Leroy Hall, Melvin Harris, Ray Edward Hayer, Calvin Johnson, Marilyn Keller, Gary Dean Kirby, Davery Limbacher, Julie Love, John Mayer, Joseph Saunders, Clifton Scott, Craig Shields, Harry Simmers, Daniel Taylor, Henry Wolgemuth, and Mike York. In the Central District, Wilbur Barnes, Christopher Block, Harry Davis, Joseph Embry, LaFate Essery, James Glenn, Wayne Hall, Thomas Mertz, William Mosley, Brian Keith Perry, Charles Schilb, and Frederick Trowbridge.
For Central Office, Gregory Coleman, Cecil Jefferson, Dwayne Pace, James Schwartz, Russell Tynes, and James Walther. For the St. Louis District, Robert Eight, Perry Barks, Otis Capps, William Carr, David Cook, Charles Danatel, Lyndon Epker, Theodore Elman, Adolph Feth, Eugene George, August Glossmeyer, Arthur Gordon, Nicole Graham, Ken Hoyerman, Marvin Lewis, Larry Licklider, Jeffrey McBride, Randall Nell, Robert Reckington, Rowan Resch, Roy Robertson, Houston Schrum, Leonard Simon, John Smith, Gerald Steiner, William Weeda, and Everett Young.
For Southwest District, John Allman, Paul Ackley, Carla Boblitz, Everett Bullock, James Campbell, William Crane, Preston Ellington, Merrill Grayson, Rick Harmon, John Hawkins, Paul Hope, Wesley Jones, Pete Menard, James Minton, Cal Mumey, William Passley, Charles Roger, Milo Schooler, Joshua Slayton, Bert Bennett, Arthur Walker, Terry Washam. For the Southeast District, James Brannock, Homer Broughton, Irvin Cudworth, Bob Eftink, Dennis Evans, Gary Fehrenberg, Archie Good, Dennis Hayes, Johnny Hayes, Gerald Lazat, Curtis Mullins, Ellis Suggs, Herschel Tanner, Silas Underwood, and George Whited.
Now I'd like to introduce the Chief Safety and Operations Officer, Becky Almaroff.
Thank you, Lester, and good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. We all know that transportation work is a very dangerous industry to work in. That's evident by the 134 names that are on the memorial behind me. We've seen today the impact that this has on our family members and each and every one of us as a MoDOT family. These employees were humble public servants. They were just doing their job when something unexpected and tragic happened that would change the lives of so many people forever. As Patrick shared with you earlier, we are continually working to improve safety in everything we do. Safety on a daily basis is so much more than the bright colored hats and the vests that we wear on a daily basis. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm feeling extremely motivated today whenever we talk about safety. It's so much more than just talking about safety and caring about one another. It's really about actively caring. And when you throw that active component into it and there's action that we've seen today from Mark advocating for his fellow employees, from Lyndon's family who took action to get a law passed to make all of us safer, for Bree who's going into a career field where she can help children and advocate for children who are victims. I challenge each and every one of you here today, for our 134 family members that are on this memorial, find some action that you can take to keep yourself and your family safe. Safety needs to be part of our conversation every day. We have those little reminders at daylight saving time, you turn your clock back, you change the batteries in your smoke detectors. Those little safety reminders need to be in our conversation every single day at home and while we're at work. In 2017, we launched our Buckle Up, Phone Down campaign, encouraging Missourians to do their part to make Missouri's roadways safer. The challenge is simple. When you get into any vehicle, buckle up your safety belt, and if you're driving, put your cell phone down. Since its launch, we've had more than 10,000 individuals and 461 businesses that have accepted the Buckle Up, Phone Down challenge. Last year, the campaign won the Director's Award at our Innovations Challenge. If you haven't already accepted the challenge, I urge everyone here today to go onto MoDOT's website, find the Buckle Up pledge, take the pledge and put your phone down and buckle up on every trip. I also encourage you to encourage your family members, friends, people in your community and your coworkers to do the same. Our goal is simple, that everyone, every driver, every passenger, every MoDOT worker, go home safely, and at the end of every day, we make it back home to our families. We will never stop working towards zero injuries, zero fatalities for our employees and for our motorists. Now I'd like for everybody to take a minute. We're going to recommit ourselves to working safely every day by reciting our safety pledge. You'll find that at the very bottom of the front page of your program. Okay, please repeat after me, or repeat it with me. My safety commitment. Safety is one of MoDOT's core values. I will fulfill my moral obligation to the public, my coworkers, and myself to safely carry out our mission. Thank you. And thank you again for joining us today to honor our fallen highway heroes. Again, a special thank you to those family members that are here with us today. Please feel free to stick around, fellowship a little bit. We have a lot of stories to share. And again, please be safe as you're going home and take some action today if you can. Thank you.